Welcome, everyone, to a special bonus edition of Couch Potato Diary. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for tuning in today. The focus on this one is all about the Ultimate Fighting Championship, UFC 304. Sorry, 305. We're going to be looking at all the fights from the main card and just go a little bit more in depth than I want to do on the flagship Couch Potato Diary show, which already was probably a little bit too long today. So that is what our focus is. We already had the pretty video, so let's get right into it. First bout of the main card, it was Liang, taking on Carlos Paredes in the middleweight division. Really impressive fight here from Paredes. We had said that Lee was a bit of a live dog going in, and I apologize, Paredes. I underestimated your game severely, because this was incredible. He ends up drilling Lee with a left, and then another one, and that closes the show. It just shows the incredible power that Paredes has. To do that to a guy who has never been KO'd is just so impressive. And it's not just running out there and throwing bombs, although there is a bit of that. But it is easy power for this guy. And it just is a bit different. He completely dominated this one, and he really controlled a good fighter. And I think that's something I don't want to overstate here, is how good of a fighter I think Lee is, and how impressive it is that Paredes did that thing to that guy. I think is quite the thing. So a very big win here. And for him, like, it was a strategic thing. He just kept pushing forward and putting that pressure on Lee. This allowed him to kind of dictate where this fight was going and the pace with which it went. He will have to work on dealing with pressure, because there were some times where Lee was able to switch it and start coming forward, and that didn't go great. But I mean, how many guys do handle getting pressure right in your face? We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the main event. But still, his defense was really impressive. He had a very good vision for when strikes were coming, and just being able to just get out of the way, and then the ability to counter off of that and push forward off of that. All of that really impressive. On the other side, Lee was just simply outclassed on the feet. He just couldn't stop Paredes from really coming forward. I thought there were some times maybe you could have used a clinch, or something along those lines. And again, I know I've never been in there. These guys are highly trained athletes. Just from what I was watching, from the safety of not being punched in the head from this chair here, aside, like, I don't think the lucha mask would attack me. So, but still, it felt like he was never able to really slow that down. Paredes was able to recognize that and just land big shot after big shot after big shot, and at some point it just kind of became target practice. I'm not sure why he stood for so long. We didn't test the takedown defense of Paredes at all, and so that was a little bit interesting, because, like, Lee is fine on the feet, but he is a bit of a grinder. He's the leech, right? And he didn't do that at all. He just, this basically was just a kickboxing match, and Paredes was going to rock him every single time in that sort of a contest. So that is what it was. Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Tai Tuivasa go the distance. Unfortunately, one of the big stories of this bout is going to be a wild scorecard. You had 29-28 and 30-27 for Rozenstruik, both of which I can absolutely comprehend. And then 30-27 for Tai Tuivasa. Nope, not doing that. Nope. Doesn't work, not it. Just a really bad scorecard there from that judge. Just horrendous. Now, that judge was relieved of their duties, so that was nice that there was quick action that was taken on just a horrendous scorecard. I don't think that would have happened stateside, quite frankly, or here in Canada, to be fair. But that I'm happy that the commission out there in Australia took swift discipline and booted that person from everything. But overall, Rozenstruik gets the win. He was just on another level on the feet. He was setting things up really well. It's something we said coming into this fight, that Rozenstruik was better and more technical in the area that Tai really does thrive in, and that is on the stand-up. And you could just see, like, he was just, there was a crispness to it, there was a plan with it, all of it. He was very good. And for Tai Tuivasa, there just wasn't a whole lot there. It was all just like spurts going in and going for a knockout, and it explodes in and tries for a knockout. Like, it was going for the big punch every single time, and it just didn't work every single time, and it just became repetitive, and it became frustrating. It became very easy for Rozenstruik to kind of game plan around. And again, it's dangerous, because if Tai hits you like that, like, you're going down. It's heavyweight MMA, but I was not impressed, and Tai now needs a break on the flagship Couch Potato Diary show, we kind of went over the need for tune-up fights. I don't even know if Ty needs a tune-up fight. He just needs to not be fighting top 10 opposition, because he's not a top 10 heavyweight in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. The fact that he was ranked 10 was a statement on where the UFC rankings are, and just a bit disgraceful, quite frankly. He's lost 4 in a row. That shouldn't have happened. And so because of that, it keeps getting him fights with guys who are just better than him. And that's what happened here. He just wasn't good enough to compete with Rosenstruck. He is just not on this level. He seems, from all accounts, seems like a tremendous guy and is fun to watch because he's out there and he's throwing bombs and all of that. But he's just not on this level. And quite frankly, I didn't come away from this fight overly impressed with either cat. I thought it was a bit of an underwhelming fight. So it feels like heavyweight has kind of passed some of these guys by. And I mean, unfortunately it hasn't, but it feels like it should have by now. Anyway, Dan Hooker outlasts Mateusz Gamrot. Really, really fun fight. Admittedly, I had Gamrot, and I had him 30-27. So I am the judge who gets dismissed in this one. I thought he had enough control and did enough with that control to get the wins in all of the rounds. And then the stand-up in the third round, I thought he landed a little bit more impactfully than Hooker did. But again, I came out, this is not a shot at Hooker at all. Like, this is one, I disagreed with the scorecards. This is not a rivalry. This is not a robbery. Even though I disagreed with it, it's like, okay, well, 2 other people saw it differently than I did. That's basically what it came down to. I came away very impressed with both fighters on this card. And I think that there is a real strong case for both these guys moving forward now in a very competitive division. Hooker does kind of steal this win, I guess, with strong finishes to the rounds. And it seemed like that was part of the game plan, where Gamrot would get the takedown, he would do his business, like he would absolutely beat the shit out of him in some spots. In the second round, it was a bit more about control than damage. But Hooker, and apparently he told the commentary team this before, Hooker knew that he would be able to get up at some point, and if there's a couple minutes left in the round, you're going to be worn out and I'm not. So now I'm going to piece it together on the feet, which is the area where Hooker would have the advantage anyway. And so I thought if that was the game plan, like, he probably took a bit more blows to the head than you thought, although going into the third round, he's bleeding and the cut man has a Q-tip inside of his face and he's just laughing like, I love this shit, man. Just the type of fighter you love, right? Again, I didn't think it was enough to win these rounds, but it was a really effective use of the game plan for him. And I thought he kind of dictated this fight, both positively and negatively, quite frankly, for him. His forward pressure was excellent, and Gamrot is not really someone who off his back foot is then going to be able to quick level change takedown. He kind of needs to be coming forward and charging for you. And so when Hooker was walking forward and walking him down, he was having quite a bit of success on the feet. And then the push kick would come, and Gamrot would catch it and be able to kind of string together some things to finish a takedown off of that. And that is where things really started to kind of bog down for Hooker in this fight. Again, not to the point where it cost him the win, but this felt like a time where, like, you just, hey, can we just make this boxing, not even kickboxing? Because he's catching every kick you're throwing and getting takedowns off of it. So even if it was a strategic thing to try to get that front kick up the middle, either as a rangefinder or as something keeping him at a distance, it became a tactical flaw later on in the fight, and it kind of set him back in that way. But still, the boxing was great, and all of it was fantastic. For Gamrot, I thought he showed a well-rounded game. Like, his takedowns were really good. As I said, he's getting backed up, and it's not going particularly well for him, and he's still able to get his takedowns. Excuse me for a sec. He's still able to get his takedowns. I definitely could have edited that out, and I'm not going to. He's recognizing that there is still something there that he can get a takedown off of, and he only needed one opportunity in the first and second round to be able to do that, and he was able to get it. And that is a very good fighter that he did that too. And so I thought his taking advantage of the opportunities, even when the fight was going against you, that's not something you see from a lot of guys. And he was able to do that in a really effective way, and I thought it was great. And then once he got it to the ground, I thought he was really good. In the first round, he lands a ton of damage, which I thought was enough to win the round. And in the second round, he was advancing positions and showing his control in that way. And I have come to realize that I overvalue that greatly. I think when you have the 11th best person in the world at what they do, and that thing is physical competition, and you're able to hold that person down when their only goal in life in that moment is to get up, and you're able to advance positions on them, that's really fucking impressive. And I don't think we give that enough credit. And so I think that was the case in the second round, which is where you get Dan Hooker getting some wins. I thought he was able to advance positionally, maybe not with as much damage. And so a couple rounds you see different strengths that he has on the ground, and it was actually really impressive. He did, though, kind of run out of gas in the back part of a couple rounds. And I do think that ends up costing him in this. He didn't win the stand-up battle, but I think he certainly showed that that's a weapon of his, at least. It's never going to be a strength, but I think it's going to be good enough that you're going to have to respect it, and it's going to, I think, continue to advance to a point where he will be able to set up takedowns off of it. But again, like I said, I came away really liking this fight for both guys, and being really impressed by both. All right. In the co-main event, it was Kai Kara-France with a knockout of Steve Erceg. Kai Kara-France with his don't blink moment, just fantastic power. And a great way to set it up as well. He was having some trouble getting in on Erceg. Erceg had very good defense and just that subtle movement that drives you fucking crazy, where it's just out of the way. Like, it's not, you're going right and, oh, big drop left, oh, big drop right, and we're just doing dance move. We're Chris Tucker and Rush Hour, baby, and we're just doing that. It's not like the big exaggerated, I'm a little dizzy now, it's not big exaggerated movements, it's just subtle enough to just keep you out of the way. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but that's really goddamn frustrating that you are just there. And so the way he was able to counter that is something that I wish more guys would do in the sport, and that's put combinations together, knowing that punch 1 and maybe even punch 2 ain't getting there, but punches 3 and 4, at that point, my forward momentum is going to be such that I am going to just, you're not backing up faster than I'm moving forward. So I'm going to be able to, like, all right, this one didn't get me there, but I'm a little bit closer. This one didn't get me there, all right, I'm a little bit closer. And now this third one, skitoosh, and there goes your consciousness. I thought just a brilliant use of the combination to get himself inside, to get himself into range, to land with that power, and then he showed for this weight class, to have that power. I think I said lightweight before. If I did, I didn't mean to. For this power at 125 pounds is just really good. And to be able to pull that off is quite impressive. So bravo to him for doing this. And I said coming in, this was the biggest fight of his career because he was getting into kind of gatekeepery status. And now he stays title relevant with this victory and is due for, I think, a pretty big fight going forward. For Erceg, it's a tough one. Defensively, he was great, like I said before. And it's weird to say that about a guy who got knocked out in the first round. But the defense and the head movement, tremendous. And I don't want to undersell that at all. That is absolutely a skill. But it seemed like he was fighting a 25-minute fight in a 15-round fight against the guy who could make it a 4-round fight with the power that he had. And that's what we saw. And so, like, the crisp head movement and the just getting out of the way is really good and really high level. The reason that I personally like it so much is because you can just get out of the way and you are still 98% in position to then do some damage off of that, coming off of a counter. Whereas the other guy is outreaching and stuff like that, right? And so you get this opportunity where you're basically in your fight stance and they are fully committed and in the most vulnerable spot they will be in, and that's where the counters start to open up. Instead, Erceg was just using it as avoiding target practice. He never really got his offense going. And part of that could be the respect for the power of Kai Kara-France and just not wanting to get in and engaging. And again, I get it. I wouldn't want to get punched in the head either. But it ain't my job. And so I just felt like this was a little underwhelming for Erceg in terms of the output that he had. But I thought defensively, again, top-notch, 10 out of 10 across the board until he got punched in the head and knocked out. It's a tough spot for him now because he has now lost the 2 biggest fights of his career. And the gap between who he has beaten and who he has lost to is actually pretty vast. And so where does he fit in now to that structure is interesting, and we'll see what type of matchmaking he gets. It's a setback. I think he's a talented fighter. I just think he needs to grow a little bit. And then we get to the main event, where Dricus Du Plessis pulls out the upset, beating Israel Adesanya in the main event. he found an opening and he took advantage of it. It feels like it's a little out of control at time, but that's a strength of his, is creating a bit of chaos. And it didn't, like, to be fair, it didn't work for 2 of the first 3 rounds. I had him down 2-1 on the scorecards. But it's weird because he is out of control and it's all over the place. And then he'll stop and he'll land a picture perfect, like 1-2 up the middle. And I guess that's probably 3. Either way, he lands a perfect combination up the middle, and he'll set you back a little bit. And so it's not like what we had back in the 2010s where it's guys chasing down and it's rock'em sock'em robots just like punching, like there is at least a touch of method to the madness. And there is some where it's just batshit crazy, right? Like I said on Couch Potato today, his takedowns are like going for a flying crossbody block in pro wrestling. Like, it's just gross. But it works sometimes. And it works for him. And he is able to control that chaos and use it to his advantage. And he was able to get that. It was in the chaos that he's able to land a left and get the takedown, get the choke. And that's all she wrote. He was behind and he was still able to pull that out. And he was close to setting up that choke in round 1. And so I think when he saw he had that advantage, I don't know if that's a pre-scout or a in the moment recognizing like, oh, this was close the first time. Let me go for that again. But it was clearly something that it was immediate. He wasn't fucking around with ground and pound. He wasn't whatever. It's like, I'm going for the neck and I'm going for the choke. And so that I thought that was impressive instincts from him to be able to get that done. He had most of his success when he was coming forward in this bout. We talked about how tricky that could be because Israel Adesanya is one of the greatest strikers in the history of the sport. And so charging in recklessly as he is wont to do can be a little sketchy at times when you have Israel Adesanya firing pistons back at you. And so the times where he was pushing forward were limited, admittedly. He did do a good job of kind of exploding in quickly, getting his offense and getting out a little bit. He was still eating some counter shots. But he never put himself fully out of position in the way that you would expect him to, given that that's sort of a style. And then, again, it's that pushing forward that lands the left that ends up putting this thing out. But he seemed very aware of what Izzy could do. He seemed very aware of what he was looking to do, and he was able to take advantage of it based off of all of that. On the Adesanya side, he kind of just got caught. Like, I had him up 2-1 in the third, and, going into the fourth. I thought he was fighting a brilliant fight on the feet and really starting to get into a groove, but he had some issue, again, with that forward pressure of DDP. And that's something we saw in the Strickland fight where it was just forward. But it was forward in a measured way. It wasn't Clay Guida back in the day where he's just in your face the whole time, because that would have got him knocked out. And with DDP, he was having a difficult time trying to get that, engage that for the reasons we just discussed. But when he was doing that, it was giving Izzy some problems. And again, when you have a 185 to 200 pound man coming at you, not many are going to be great at just dealing with that. But there wasn't the circling, there wasn't the movement. It was just that this guy is coming at me and I'm having a difficult time really trying to put my things together. And so that was, again, something that is starting to become a bit of a pattern here from Israel Adesanya. The one thing that I'm starting to worry about with Izzy is the power. And I'm absolutely, I think, late to the party on this. But he has just 2 KO wins since 2020, which is now 4 years ago. Like, we've gone a long time with him being very good, but it's decisions, and it's decisions, and it's decisions. And now that is putting you in a spot where you have to be perfect for 15 to 25 minutes. And if anyone's capable of that, it's him. I cannot overstate the amount of respect I have for Israel Adesanya. He will forever be one of my favorite fighters. But it does put you in a way where if one thing goes wrong, that can be the end of the night because of 4-ounce gloves and because of how good this sport is and because of the echelon that he is living in right now. And that's what happened here. He was perfect not perfect. Like, he lost the second round. But he was the better fighter for like 13 of the 18 minutes that this fight went. And he just got caught, and that was enough to drop him. And it doesn't, I don't know if it's a strategic thing because punches are landing and they're landing flush, right? Like, he is connecting. But it's not as like it's not setting guys back or anything like that. There isn't that threat. So I don't know if he's Diazing it and it's just like pop, 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 pop. Like just we're 65% on all of these, but we're landing with volume on you. But it is, I think, becoming a bit of an issue with all of this. And again, I think he's one of the greatest strikers of all time. So me being like, you know what he should do is this and this, would be kind of asinine. But it is kind of putting him in these spots now where he has to be perfect. And as you're getting 35, 36, 37 years old, just based on how this sport works, you're not going to be perfect all the time. And also, that chin's going to start to go. And that speed that you're able to pop with becomes pop, which isn't a ton of difference, but it's enough when you're talking about the best fighters in the world. And so that's the thing that I worry about with him. Because I do think something needs to be adjusted. And they talked a lot about how they're developing the strength and conditioning at City Kickboxing, so that can certainly help Israel Adesanya going forward. So I don't know if it's just that, or if it is like there's maybe a bit more of a sitting down on your punches you need to do, or something along those lines. But I do think that lack of power is going to start to catch up to him a little bit. But overall, this was a really fun night of fights. Izzy is still, I think, very good at fighting. And you had a few people kind of raise up here. So that's going to do it for this one. I want to do more of these as we go forward. I know I say that about a lot of things. But I want to do more of these for the big cards as we go forward here. So coming up later on this week for fight coverage, we're going to have our updated pound for pound rank. I say we, it's me. I'm going to have my updated power rankings coming out on Wednesday. On Thursday, we're going to do a new segment called Stock Watch. Completely revolutionary, never been done. And then on Friday, we're going to do the fights to make coming out of UFC 305. So that is the coverage you can expect here. If you want a bit more talking pointy type of stuff, that is on the regular Couch Potato Diary out now. Thank you all so much, and I will talk to all of you later. Have a great day, everybody.